Y'all, I just want to talk about some old crones today. This video is going to be very goofy. I didn't write a script for it and I recorded it last week and my microphone ended up shifting like a minute into the video. My clothes ended up muffling the microphone for the entire video. Someone told me it's better to put the microphone a little lower for sound, but this is not the first time my clothes have then ended up like moving over the microphone. So I think I'm just gonna stick with keeping the microphone a little higher where I know I know where it's at. So I'm gonna try my best to replicate the mood of this video. Maybe it will turn out even more goofy than the first time. I have always loved the archetype or personality of the eccentric old lady. I'm definitely one of those people who already feels like I have a lot in common with a lot of eccentric old ladies. Like I kind of have old lady energy. I'm resistant to modern technology. My musical tastes are stuck in the 70s. I have a lot of old ladyish hobbies. I'm very frugal. I work all the time, but I have a very flexible schedule, so I kind of seem more like a retired person. But it seems like it'd be pretty great to actually become an eccentric old lady. Like there's downsides like the sickness and the death, but if I could just be an eccentric old lady for a long time, that would be great. And it's a sweet vibe. When I think of the peak old lady attributes, I think of you got your rocking chair, you're an artist, you got a friendly pet hanging around, you're doing a jigsaw puzzle,
and you don't give a shit.
It's no wonder that the most bro-ish, techie bro-y types seem to feel a little threatened by the artsy, eccentric old crone. And it's no wonder. The eccentric old lady can be a threat to the status quo. I'm not sure if I will ever be the most bold and opinionated old lady because those are traits that I have never really had in my life. But one can only aspire. And in fact, what actually prompted me to talk about eccentric old ladies was the latest awareness of capitalism I was experiencing. I was listening to my playlist on Spotify, and for like a week, they really were giving me this Sephora ad. And it begins with them saying, "You're obsessed with your skincare routine." And after hearing someone tell me how obsessed I am with my skincare routine over and over for a week, that I am not at all obsessed with my skincare routine. But, you know, there's that little voice in your head that's like, should I be? If you've been paying any attention to cultural and purchasing trends, you'll know that skincare obsession, oh my God, I cannot talk today. Skincare obsession is at like a peak to the point where like 12-year-olds have a skincare routine. Even some warnings that they're messing up their skin by having too much of a skincare routine at too young of an age. Now, I don't ever want this channel to have the vibe of like shaming people or telling you what to do or judging you. I hope that I never have that vibe because there's certainly nothing wrong with having a skincare routine, even a somewhat involved one. I love my vintage clothing wardrobe because I just feel like me in the right outfit. And I think everybody has different things that they do that make them feel like themselves. And I encourage everyone to do whatever it is that makes you feel the most like yourself, the most confident. So my concern is not the skincare routine itself. It's the cultural pressure to have, like, there's something wrong with you if you don't have a skincare routine, if you're not obsessed with your skincare routine. And the end result of having a skincare routine, it is implied, should be to not look your age, to look young forever, never look like a crazy wrinkled old crone. That's not what we want. We want to be the kind of person that's 90 but gets a lot of, wow, you look 70, right? Like that's where our culture is. You should be doing everything possible not to look like an old crone. But personally, I kind of love the old crone. And I'm at an age where, you know, I kind of looked like I wasn't really changing much for years. I don't go outside very much, so I don't age quickly. But I'm in my 40s now. I'm definitely noticing like the skin just not looking as young and dewy as it used to, just by nature. And those little insecurities can creep in. Like, should I be doing something about this? Should I be trying to fight off the signs of aging? And that's where I'm like really looking into myself and thinking, do I really care about looking younger than my age? Or is my ideal vibe in my older age actually perfectly fine with looking old? And generally the old women that I admire the most and think are like the coolest, they do look old. So I'm going to say yes, and I'm going to embrace old age. Bring on the ravages of old age. It just means that you have lived.
Live, that's the message. Live? Yes, life is a banquet, and most poor suckers are starving to death.
And there's a particular type of old lady that I dream of being, and it really is, it is the eccentric old lady. There was a recent issue of Enchanted Living magazine that actually put an old lady on the cover. Or let me go get it for you. This cover from last autumn, and like, I love this for her. I love this for all of us, that this was a magazine cover. This old lady looks like she's having the time of her life. She looks amazing. She looks splendid. Like, look at her. Do I know her? I feel like I've seen her around town. One thing I will say about my little town here outside of Asheville is that I have never met so many eccentric old ladies in my life. Like, if you want a model for how to be an awesome old lady, this is the place. Because there's a lot of retirees here, and a lot of them are very artsy, very weird. And I love that. We have very iconic old ladies for just being a small town, let me tell you. Now, for the purposes of this discussion of old ladies, I'm going to note that an old lady, and in the purposes of this discussion, is like a post-menopausal lady, but obviously the older the better. Culturally, that is about the age when women start to be seen as like not desirable unless they do a lot to maintain a dewy youthful beauty so that people go, oh my gosh, she doesn't look 60. But generally, you know, you gotta work for it. But let's talk about some old ladies who seem like they just kind of went their own damn way. Tasha Tudor is always the one that I think of first. Tasha Tudor has said that she thought that she was reincarnated from like the 1830s, I believe. And so she just dressed and lived like she was in the 1830s. She lived in an old farmhouse in New England. She had a beautiful garden. She's had her 1830s style clothing. She had, I believe, like a dollhouse, and she painted watercolor children's picture books. And all of that just seems like perfect cottagecore old lady vibe. Does it also sound like a lot of work? Yes. On the total other side of the eccentric old lady vibe, you have somebody like Fran Lebowitz. She's always looked the same. Even pictures of her like in the 70s when she was young, she had like the same hair, just kind of the same vibe. There's a real eternalness about Fran Lebowitz. Her Wikipedia page says she is known for her sardonic social commentary. I do think there's something rather charming about anyone whose first adjective on Wikipedia is sardonic. I get along very well with sardonic people. Now, Fran Lebowitz used to hang out with Andy Warhol. She owns 10,000 books, and she's the epitome of New York City eccentric old lady, which sometimes I almost feel like I should move to New York City before I die so that I can become an old lady there. It seems like a great place to become an old lady. I would love to be the kind of old lady who could have the farmhouse and the chickens and the beautiful garden, but like realistically, I am an epitome of a house cat. So I would probably fare much better being the eccentric New York City old lady, even though I don't know if I'm really sardonic. Fashion, the fashion world turns out a lot of great old ladies, of which probably the most well-known was Iris Apfel, who died fairly recently. I think she lived to be like 102. Yeah, she lived to be 102, and she was known for her colorful, crazy, eccentric outfits, her huge glasses. She had like a very identifiable, iconic look to her that was just like maximalist. And there's also some fashion designers that started out young but are now aging into their eccentric old ladiness because they already were rather eccentrically styled people to begin with, so why not? Like Betsy Johnson. I grew up reading Sassy Magazine, which Betsy Johnson often was featured in Sassy Magazine, so she kind of was like our like midlife icon to follow. If you're a fashion girly, you could look at Betsy Johnson and the pages of Sassy as a kid and go, wow, you can be really cool when you're middle-aged. And now Betsy Johnson is like 75. And more of the like barely in the beginning of her old lady years, you have someone like Anna Sui. I don't know if it's Anna or Anna. She's 60, so she's just beginning whatever her old lady vibe is going to be, but I think she also has like a cool look and is likely to remain a rather iconic old lady as she ages. Then we got Amy Sedaris, the comedic old lady. Also, I feel like Amy Sedaris, like, I would love to go thrifting with her. She just seems like she's like the perfect, funny, weird thrift store shopping companion, and I have had a number of older lady thrift store shopping companions throughout my life. They're the best. The best day you can have is to grab an interesting older woman and go thrifting with them for the day. Particularly if they know more about vintage than you do and they already have more stuff than you do. So they just like finding you cool things. I've had a couple of friends like that, and that is magical. I'm starting to have too many things now, so I need a child to mentor. But yeah, I also loved the Amy Sedaris when she was in The Mandalorian and she was like the goofy spaceship fixer lady with the drones. Amy Sedaris also, she's got the fantastic apartment with just like wacky color and vintage stuff. So that would also be a great old lady life to me, to have like the funky apartment and also get a weird side gig in a Star Wars show. That sounds great. And of course, we can't not mention at least one writer. So I wanted to talk briefly about the curmudgeon type old lady. Another type of old lady that I don't think I'll ever be, because I just don't think I'm ever grumpy enough to be a curmudgeon, but I appreciate a good curmudgeon. And when I think of curmudgeon, I think of Ursula K. Le Guin. She always seemed to be kind of complaining about something, but in a way that I find kind of endearing. Like, obviously she seemed like a very thoughtful person. Like, she wasn't just a bitchy old lady that complains for the heck of it, but someone who always had a lot of critical thoughts about the world and writing and all kinds of things, and wrote some very interesting books. And also she seemed to always have that same hairstyle. I haven't confirmed if that's true, but I have noticed that one great idea, if you want to age into being an eccentric old lady, is just never to change your hair, like ever. Like, if you grew up in the 1920s, just stick with that. I have not changed my hair very much. It's basically always this, but either it's short or it's long. It's always just kind of this, though. Mainly I've let it get long because I don't want to pay for haircuts. So in short, how do you become the most interesting eccentric crone around? Well, here are the general points that you must hit. And this is where, again, don't take this video too seriously, but of course you cannot live in a new place. You have to live in an old building. That's like requirement number one. I don't know. Old buildings are really cold and old ladies are always cold. So I don't know if this is a good plan, but it doesn't matter. You have to live in an old building. You can live in an old New York apartment. You can live in a little bungalow from the 1920s. You can live in a 1790s farmhouse. You absolutely cannot live in a new place. With one exception, you can build your own cabin. Let's say back in the 1980s, you were briefly married to a hot man who came from a foreign country, and he helped you together in the midst of your young romance, built a small cabin with your own two hands. You still live in it. You can live there. That's allowed. I guess that's kind of an older place now anyway, because you built it when you were 20 with your brief French husband who is also a carpenter. Now, you're definitely an artist of some type. Could be any type. It is best, I think, to be a painter of fine art, even though that's not what I'm going to be, but that is like somehow what a lot of the eccentrical ladies do. They paint fine art. They have a lot of books. They collect something. Could be like anything, but they do have some kind of collection of something. You've got your like more highbrow eccentrical lady who has a collection of art she accumulated in New York City from up and coming artists. And then you have your lowbrow old lady who has a collection of silly sculpts from the 1970s that she's collected from thrift stores. It's great if you can have a childlike hobby of some kind. You know, Tasha Tudor had her dollhouse. Having a dollhouse, that's a great thing to do when you're an old lady. Maybe I should get a dollhouse when I'm an old lady. But you should definitely do something that like generally only children like to do or take time to do, because you're an old lady now. You can do that stuff. You might actually hate kids, but you do kid stuff. And you have routines. You have your book club every other week. You have that pot of soup that you make that you're going to eat for the next 3 days. You have your morning routine that's just like reading and a cup of tea. I already do that. You have routines. And maybe you never go anywhere, but if you do go anywhere, then you go everywhere. You might as well, if you're gonna leave the house once, you might as well like go to Thailand or something. I think if you're gonna be an eccentrical lady, you should either be an eccentric lady of your particular block, or you should be an eccentrical lady of the entire globe. There's like no in between. You're not just taking one annual trip to Disney World or the mountains. You are going everywhere, and you're going to go to weird places. You're staying in a French castle. You're going to Japan, but not any of the tourist places. You're going to countries I've barely even heard of, going everywhere. But I'm probably going to be the old lady that mostly stays on my block. I'm going to be a block old lady. That's why at some point I probably need to move to New York City and just pick a block. But if we move to Baltimore, you know, maybe that would work. Maybe I can be a Baltimore old lady. It seems like that would be a good city for being an eccentric old lady. So yeah, that's my plan. That's why I don't have a skincare routine. My only skincare routine is soap. So in 20 years, this is going to be me. And it's going to be great. So what kind of old lady are you planning to be? Or what kind of old lady are you? I know I do have some older women who watch this channel. Ditto for old men. You can also, if I was a man, I would have a different eccentric old man plan for sure. In fact, one option for being an old lady is to just start wearing like an old man's tweed jacket and just not giving a shit in a more masculine way. So, you know, you can also incorporate some of those old man routines into your old lady and vice versa, you know, why not? So paint me your old person personality, and I hope you had fun with this goofy video. I'm gonna have a bonus video this week about my book release, as well as a Sunday video. If you're new to this channel, my name is Lydia Foxglove, and my channel is generally about the creative life. In particular, I've been a professional novelist since 2009, so I talk about writing, but I also just talk about the whole creative life in general. If you'd like more from me, I have a Patreon and a Substack. They both have a free tier, and the paid tier gets you access to bonus videos as well as my Discord. And if you want to read any of my books, there's a link in the description. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye!